Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today here on our first thematic deep dive brought to you by the Expert Support Facility. And in today's workshop, which is moderated by me, Christoph, and Annelos, we will focus on how to operationalize the PED framework. And Caro here will be joining us as tech support today, so any technical questions her way. Perfect. And I'd like to start to take the moment to start a bit personal. I myself have not been working for an awful long time, but through my 10 years of experience, either working at a DH company, working as a consultant in the heating sector, or working as a climate strategist at the third largest city in Sweden, my focal point has always been systematic energy transition work, which translates to a practitioner of PED, of course. And in the various projects that I'm engaged in, I've almost always wondered why we did not manage to either anchor, speed up, scale, or to replicate a successful innovation. And I think I speak for many fellow practitioners here in the room when I say that I see a huge potential in PED as a concept. But the question is how to best use PED as a concept, as a framework, as a tool, and how we can create the right amplifying landscape so that we reach far beyond the 100 PEDs in the EU going forward towards our joint mission and the global climate challenge. So therefore, I am most curious to see how you have conceptualized PED in today's discussions. And in today's workshop, we'll dive into the updated framework definition for PED, and we'll hear from experts and explore findings in their case studies, providing us with food for thought going into the group discussions. And there we will dive even deeper into the updated framework definition, as well as assessment methodology and PEDs in relation to the mission of 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. And you will have the chance to discuss how you as practitioners of PED can and want to contribute towards PED as a more viable framework and tool in this transition. So these deep dives, they shall serve as a starting point for synthesizing approaches and achievements from PED project work. But it is quite a learning process for us facilitators as well. So please help us by giving constructive feedback in the end of the session. And our goal here in the room today is to foster like an open environment where ideas can flow freely. And hopefully we can all leave with inspiration and perhaps a few insights and practical takeaways as well. So with that said, we're thrilled to have you here on board in this exciting conversation, and let's get started. Just a brief look at the flow of today's workshop. I hope you feel welcomed now, and we'll start getting to know each other a little more after this introduction as well. After that, we'll have a look at the updated framework definition, and we'll maybe stop for a quick reflection or two, nothing elaborate. After that, we'll jump over to 2 project pitches and concrete examples of different approaches on how to operationalize the PED concept. And each pitch is followed by a short reflection and discussion round together. And then we'll have a short break, technical break for 5 minutes. So don't go far astray now. It's only a minor one. And after that, it's time for group discussions. We will be divided into 3 breakout rooms where you will have time to focus on 2 key questions together in the room. And then we reconnect in the larger room to share key opinions, insights, takeaways before talking a bit about what could be the next steps. And with that, and before we dive into the main event, let's take a few moments to connect and to get to know each other a little bit better. We have different backgrounds and experiences and perspectives, so that's what makes it valuable, I think. And we'll do this introduction and warm up through a very easygoing Menti. So just scan the QR code or enter the link on menti.com. Use your laptop or your phone even, and we'll be looking at the answers live together. Christoph, do you want to take over the presentation already now, perhaps?
Yes, please. If everybody has successfully entered the Menti, so are you all in there? Or do you need more time?
I'm in there now, also
Yeah.
filling in. Yeah.
Otherwise, I would say I would share my screen.
Do I need to stop first?
Please. So the first question is an easy one anyway. Who are you? What are you working? Or what kind of, how would you describe your professional background? And let's have a look who we are. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Not so surprisingly, 78% researchers. We have percentage here, not the absolute numbers, but yeah, some people were one person probably working for a city. Do the team is strong? May I ask one person who said who is other or all of this or can't tell who that what that is?
That was me, Christoph.
That was you, Caro. Okay, all good. Okay, so we have a very research-oriented discussion today. Of course, you're all coming from research and innovation projects. Let's go to the next question. Also very simple. What is your project? From which call does your project come? From the JPI Urban Europe call, PED call 2 from 2021, or from a PED project from call 22? Okay. Well, looks good. More projects from PED from the DOT call anyway. So okay. And the not in the project people, I guess, are again the DOT colleagues. Okay, great. Next question. What do you think, or what are you expecting of today regarding this PED deep dive number 1? You wonder how other projects have tackled the issue, if you will get support and new ideas from for your project, or if you can bring across the approach of your project, or you wonder what you're actually doing here. Yeah, you see the options. And you can put in multiple responses. So it doesn't have to be only one goal that you have or idea that you have of this meeting. At least one person isn't sure why he or she's here.
I think it was good you included the purple question.
Yes, thank you for the feedback already. It won't happen again, we promise.
Yes. No,
I'm sorry, I lost the link from my phone. I just exited. Could you please put the QR code again so I can enter? I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Yeah. Jonas, can you share
Yeah,
this
I will. I'm on
slide?
it. I'll try.
I'm so sorry for the complication. I don't know.
I'm scrolling. There it is. So meeting, chat. There we have it.
Yeah, okay, you can if you go to menti.com and click the code and enter the code, then you will.
Perfect. No, I lost also the code. Thank you so much.
Okay, all good. And then we go to the final question. A bit information about the mental condition you're in.
I see we have a remark in the chat. What if we are in other PED related projects from Horizon 2020? That was for the previous question then.
Okay, let's come back to that in a second.
But it's good to see that we have participants from Horizon PED projects as well, right? Yeah.
So do you see the last question? Yes. The first two questions are the more serious ones. Well, equal distribution of how much you love working in the JP Urban Europe DUT project. Quite good satisfaction with the progress of the project. Energy levels also quite evenly distributed. That's great to hear. I wonder who gives strongly agree here. And yeah, most of you are at least a bit optimistic still with regard to the state of the world. Thank you for this and for a bit of information from your side, so we know a bit better who we are. Yeah, and let's go to the more serious part.
Yeah, let me share my screen
Jonas.
again then. All right. Sharing screen. Okay. Yeah. As you all know, Positive Energy Districts is a framework for practitioners to address the energy transition and to address climate neutrality as well, with the three central pillars of efficiency, flexibility, and production. And the PED pathway, as told previously, has a vision to initialize 100 PEDs by 2025 and contribute to the mission on climate neutral cities with a portfolio of PED solutions until 2030. And there has been identified a sort of a need previously in the PED pathway for a supportive panel, both for strategic development, but also kind of a need for a continuous cooperation between funded projects, but also continuous synthesization and reflection of project outcome, as opposed to synthesization after projects have ended. So with the selection of the PEDCAL2 projects, the ESF Expert Support Facility function was established as this supportive panel then in order to support those very needs. And like at the DUT project meeting in Brussels, many project partners expressed a need for like a thematical exchange between the engaged PED projects, and brainstorming sessions on topics between ESF experts was conducted, and we had some further planning and design within the group, and the result is presented to you here today with these 5 following thematic deep dives on how to operationalize the PED framework, which we are focusing on today. And the following sessions in the series are stakeholder engagement and social aspects, digital twins and decision-making tools for PED, energy balance, flexibility services, and climate impact assessment. And lastly, financial instruments, framework, and business models. So this event and the following sessions then are excellent opportunities to get new insights and collaborate with fellow professionals, we think. And just a quick some thoughts on the scope and the expected output of our deep dive initiative. I mean, as told now on previous slides, this dedicated deep dive format will hopefully help us to synthesize challenges and approaches on key topics of PED project work. And the output from these sessions will be compiled and analyzed and also synthesized then into like some sort of thematic two-pager position paper of some sort, which then in itself can be used as in various occasions, like for input for ordinary project dissemination activities, as input for knowledge transfer between the soon ending ESF and the just starting knowledge hub function, but also as input for the upcoming big events in 2025, a PED conference and PED projects meeting. But perhaps also for policy briefs and recommendations and other stuffs as well, we think. But enough about the background already, I think. We are super happy to have been able to share this first draft of the updated framework definition with you already, and which has been on the agenda for many of us the last couple of months. And I will just hand over and give the word to you, Christoph and Alelos, to talk a bit more about the framework definition and the background for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonas. Just response to Martin, who asked in the chat if all other dates are known. Yes, of course, they are already known. We will communicate them at the end of the session regarding the next steps. But it's basically monthly until May, so there is time between the deep dives. Okay, so what are we doing today? Jonas already touched some things. We're trying to talk about or discuss about the potential operationalization of the PED framework, because we're still lacking a proper universal definition, and there's an ongoing discussion if that does make sense. We all know positive energy districts rely very much on the concrete context, so it's very hard to have an overall definition in a narrow sense. There has been always a discussion between kind of the technological idea of the concept, the technological framing or scientific framing, versus a tool for urban policies, which has a different narrative, of course. The question, should that be a quantitative definition, a quantitative framework with calculations, etc., or more qualitative description? And of course, in the end, the question, how do we want to get to a standardization or certification of any sorts regarding the positive energy districts? So for us, the question was that we bring together the projects that DOT and JP Urban Europe or other sources are funding to discuss this question. How did you deal with these issues? How did you approach the question of, okay, this is our framing, our definition of a positive energy district in our project or in our different cases? We will present you shortly, and I've sent out, I don't know if it was a bit late, I don't know if you had the time to maybe have a look at it. We sent out a draft version of the updated, very qualitative framework definition from our side. So one question to you is also, we will not finally answer that today, if you feel that this updated framework supports your activities, and we'll touch the question on how do we move forward with this framing question of positive energy districts. Next slide, please. We've sent out a Menti before the meeting where we can see that, well, for some of your projects, it has been a major challenge to discuss exactly these questions. For others, it was an important task, but not a super key question. No one, at least from those who responded, skipped the question altogether. And there were also some other responses. Next slide, please. In your qualitative responses it's quite interesting statements like the realization how different PED deployment strategies have to be depending on the context, that it is always some kind of negotiation process in which a consortium needs to agree to a specific definition or framing. Yeah, you see the responses here. You will get, of course, the slides. Also, the question that comes up here that in reality, most of our projects are no real PEDs. The question is, what is a real PED? Do we still keep the positive energy balance in the framing, for example? So these are all questions that we want to touch upon in the upcoming 1.5 hours. We cannot do it much longer. So maybe adding to what Jonas said, this is an offer to you also to start exchanging among yourself, identify potential partners or ideas from other projects, because of course we won't find final conclusions or answers in these 2 hours that we have now. But it's rather an offer to kind of dig into that and maybe find new ways of cooperation and interesting exchange. Next slide, please. Just a quick background. Why is it the framework 3.0? There was already a very initial framework definition from the start of the PED program, which started in 2018, basically as a set plan implementation working group. The currently valid framework definition is 2.0. That you probably have all seen that builds very strongly on the 3 main energy functions: efficiency, flexibility, production. Still has the kind of the goal of an annual energy surplus creation in the local context in its definition, and we will see that we changed that a bit in the updated framework. Why did we change, or why did we feel the need to update the framework definition? First of all, there was some kind of skepticism or criticism, especially from city representatives, that this is not a very attractive narrative both towards politicians, but also especially towards residents. So there is a need to create a more accessible and more engaging narrative. As already stated, the whole question on the term positive in the concept, which is in many contexts a big barrier for actual positive energy districts, if we talk about existing structures, for example. And as a third important point, to better integrate the PED concept or the PED discourse in the climate neutrality policies and discourse that has developed in recent years on the European level. Yeah, next slide, please. I think with this, I'll hand over to Annelus. Thank you for your attention. And now we dig a bit deeper into the actual suggestion from our side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christoph. For those who do not know me, maybe a short introduction from my side. My name is Annelus van Noort. I work for the Flemish government, and we are part of the DUT partnership, and I'm a vice chair of the PED Transition Pathway. And today I would like to introduce very shortly, because we want to spend as much time as possible on the discussion as well. But for those of you who did not have the opportunity at the framework yet, I will briefly introduce it. If you have immediate questions during my short talk, please already put them in the chat and we will come back to them very shortly at the end of my presentation. Okay, next slide, please, Jonas. Okay, I think Christophe already touched upon this. Why do we have a new framework definition 3.0? Well, the goal was to establish a joint European policy relevant PED framework. So it's not only a technical framework, but also very much more into the policy side of PEDs. We wanted to create a flexible framework as well, because of course we know every country in Europe is different, every city is different, every neighborhood is different. So we needed a kind of a framework that is robust, but also easily to adapt to the local circumstances. So we wanted an inclusive and accessible definition. This also leads me to the target groups. Maybe it's not so much targeted towards the researchers, which are today around the table, but more towards these policymakers on different levels, European, national, regional levels, to make their strategies, to make policies and so on, but also very much for policymakers on the local level to actually use this framework in the projects they have on the ground. Next slide, please. The framework is built up on a larger definition, but the core, as it was in the past, is still around these three concepts of energy efficiency, energy flexibility, and production of local renewable energy. But although these are at the core, of course, it's not only about energy as such, it's about more than that. And next slide, please, Jonas. Yes. So it's also, PEDs are also about affordability, about financial sustainability, and they are seen as drivers of systemic transformation. PEDs should integrate diverse systems such as energy, mobility, ICT systems, and they're very much about interaction between buildings, between users, between regional networks, and they align with a mission towards sustainability. PEDs are also very much about people, about engagement, about engaging all the stakeholders at all the different levels of governance, and about empowering those local stakeholders. PEDs should secure energy supply and should be beneficial to a good life for all, in line with the social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Next slide, please. If we look at the framework, we see that we worked around three main questions. So first of all, what is a positive energy district? And then we go to the question of why do we actually need positive energy districts? And then also very important for the projects within the UT, how do we actually do that? How do we realize positive energy districts? Next slide, please. So the first question is, what is a positive energy district? And like I said before, the concept is centered around three key functions. So energy efficiency, flexibility, and local renewable energy production. And based on these functions, we see that PEDs are highly interconnected with their surroundings and they play an active part in the overall energy system. So this means we do not perceive PEDs as self-sufficient energy islands by solely relying on local resources. This concept would be too narrow, especially in areas with limited renewable energy potential and high energy demand. So sharing with energy between a PED and the surrounding areas enhances flexibility, resilience, but also cost effectiveness in both electricity and heating and cooling. And in this way, PEDs are also aligned with the broader mission of climate neutral cities by enhancing efficiency and promoting sustainable urban growth by efficient spatial planning. If we look at the function of PED on energy efficiency should be a priority. We should have energy efficiency first, because the less energy we use, of course, the better it is. And the less space as well we need for energy production, of course. If we look at the role of flexibility, PEDs can actively contribute to the resilience and balancing of the regional and national energy system. And they can manage the interaction of the district with the national system. And the closer we get to future scenarios of energy systems with 100% renewables, the more important energy flexibility also is getting. And finally, the local renewable energy production can enable substantial reduction in greenhouse gas emission, but this production depends on a large extent on local and regional conditions, and PEDs could play a crucial role in this transition. Next, please. Then if we go to the question of why do we actually need PEDs? Well, first of all, for a PED, striving to become climate neutral is essential to both limit and adapt to climate change, enhance its resilience, and also protect the environment. If we take ambitious but also coordinated actions, PEDs can contribute to global efforts to create more sustainable and resilient future for all. Secondly, the PED approach could be a response tackling multiple challenges. We are living in an area of crisis. We have the energy crisis, the climate crisis. There is a crisis in cost of living, and PEDs could be an answer to tackle all these challenges at once. Thirdly, if we look at the EU building stock, we see that it's relatively old. It's not adapted to the future of a carbon-free environment, and actions are needed to reduce energy needs. Therefore, PEDs promote reuse, retrofitting, and repurposing of existing districts and neighborhoods. And in essence, PEDs contribute to a higher quality of life. And this reflects a vision of urban neighborhoods that prioritizes human well-being, social harmony, environmental stewardship, and sustainable development. It also emphasizes the importance of a holistic and an inclusive approach to societal progress. If we then look at energy justice, this is a concept that encompasses the fair and equitable distribution of energy resources among individuals and communities within a certain area, in this case, of course, within a PED. And overall, energy justice aims to transform the energy system into one that is socially equitable, environmentally sustainable, and economically viable for all. And then lastly, PEDs create new market opportunities, and they contribute to making sustainable energy more accessible and affordable for all. Okay, next one, please. And then, of course, one of the most important questions, how do we actually realize those PEDs? Well, if we want to achieve climate neutrality, we need a long-lasting transformation process. So there are no predefined or guarantee recipes for success now at the moment. And many cities have already set up multitudes of local initiatives which touch upon important aspects of the PED concept. And although they do not cover all the dimensions of the holistic PED approach, those initiatives can indeed be considered important steps toward PED realization. It is key to continue these efforts within a long-term perspective. The second concept is to align our efforts. So the PED concept is not only about merely putting together different technologies, rather it is a holistic concept, like I mentioned before, and it takes system perspective into focus. Thus, there is a need for adequate policy frameworks and financial instruments, and these frameworks have to be created at the different political levels, so the national, the regional, the local level, and also involve other actors like businesses, civil society, and organizations. If I go to the third one, is to cooperate. I already mentioned different stakeholders, but PED requires the cooperation of all those stakeholders. Without their commitment to take political or investment decisions, the realization of PEDs is not feasible. Fourthly, we need to empower local communities. We need to have citizens to participate, as these are important success factors for the realization of PEDs. And by actively engaging citizens and civil society, they could play a crucial role in driving the transition towards a more sustainable, efficient, and resilient energy system. If I look at the fifth one, it's about integration. It's about sector coupling, which will become more and more important in the near future. It involves linking different energy sectors like electricity, heating, and cooling, and to create synergies and maximizing the efficiency of energy use and enabling greater utilization of local renewable energy sources. Sixth, we need to make connections, and the interactions between different building blocks and systems of a PED are crucial for creating intelligent and connected environments that enhance efficiency, comfort, safety, resilience, and sustainability. And last but not least, sustainable financing for PEDs means embedding environmental, social, and governance factors into investment decisions. Next slide, please. So to summarize, if we look at PEDs, we see that positive energy districts are building blocks for climate neutrality and sustainability. They contribute to the objectives of the European Green Deal to become climate neutral by 2050, but they're also stepping stones that could be used towards the mission of 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. And they are crucial in a transition towards more sustainable urban cities and more sustainable urban development. If we look at the PED framework, it is impact-driven approach where processes are key. So it's the way towards a PED that is almost more important than realization of the PED itself, because the goal is always changing. The challenges are always changing. Like I said before, there is no one-size-fits-all strategy regarding the implementation of the PED concept. Every city is different, every country, every district. So we need specific ideas and concepts for the PEDs. And that is also why a detailed quantification is not part of this framework definition. It should be part of a national or regional process to have this quantification rules. Next slide. I think, yeah, those are the quick questions. Are there any questions?
I mean, we are about 15 minutes behind of schedule. But we have a great discussion running in the chat about conflicts in scale on PEDs and depending on conditions in different nations in the Union. Very interesting to hear all the different perspectives already. And I think the best approach here is to take those reflections and insights to the group discussions. If we don't have one, we have time for one fast, quick reflection here in plenary to Christoph and Alanos. If there's someone that needs a clarification of some sort, but all the more lengthy reasonings I want us to save to the group discussions, I think. Martin, please.
I was still puzzled with your very last sentence, Anna-Loes, on your previous slide. The quantification is not part of the framework. What does that mean in your words?
So we do not want to measure PEDs. So it's not about the indicators and then getting a label, okay, this is a PED. It's more about the process of becoming a PED and about working together. It's about the people. So it's not really on measuring how much renewable energy are you producing and so on.
So it's more or less for the initiatives to create their own criteria and do a score on their criteria and then say, okay, we are doing well, we are a PED. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think we need to frame the concept rather broadly, because if we limit ourselves too much on a generalized calculation formula, I think it will be it is a very exclusive concept. By opening that up and allowing for different approaches and solutions in different contexts, also in terms of calculation, I think we hope that this is a much more successful approach in terms of replication and scaling up.
Which is why we are so excited now to hear from our projects and experts, to hear how they have conceptualized PED in their own real world examples. So first out, we have Kodrut Papina, who will be walk us through the Kinetic project, showcasing some key challenges and lessons learned there. You have 10 minutes. I will notify you when you have 1 minute left to wrap it up. And then we have 5 minutes time for reflections to Kodrut's presentation. But please,
thank you, Jonas.
Take it away, and just you can say just next or next page when you want me to change.
So to briefly present myself, I'm an urban planner working in company Urba Sofia based in Bucharest. We deal with strategic urban planning consultants into cities. So I will not consider myself an expert for PED in any kind of matter, but I've been lucky enough to work in a consortium with different kind of experts on different fields. So if you go to the next slide, we work in Kinetic with 3 demo cases. I mentioned in the chat the case about Copenhagen, which is one of our stories. Today we'll be focusing on the story of Bucharest, but we also have Parma as a demonstrator city. For each of the demonstrator city, there is a support partner. So I think we have here Enza Lisandro from Aalborg University supporting Copenhagen team. Urba Sofia is supporting Bucharest, which is why I will be speaking for this part of the project. CNR Research Institute is supporting Parma, and then we have two technical partners very valuable to frame the PED possibilities in all of the 3 cases, which is University of Palermo, focusing on the boundaries that we defined as a potential PED. And then we have EURAC Research Center, which did not take into consideration any boundaries at first and have analyzed the entire city as a whole to identify where the boundary of the PED is better to be defined. Okay, if you go to the next slide. So as I said, making a deep dive into Bucharest. District 6 is one of the 6 municipalities of Bucharest under the main municipality. So it's one of the challenges is governance. Let me tell you that. Okay, next slide, please, Jonas. Okay, through this presentation, I'll try to advocate for PED as a process, because this is how it has been for all of the 3 cities and for Bucharest especially. We started 2 years ago with co-creation process that for Bucharest just ended, because Bucharest Romanian component had only 2 years of implementation. Kinetic will go 1 more year. And we had an intensive co-creation process, starting with stakeholder identification and working with them to identify the transformation pathways of the defined demo, which is Drumul Taberei. Then we work on scenarios for energy communities, in defining the development priorities in order to have the PED concept aligned with different strategies put in place. And we have been lucky enough that as a consortium, as a team, Kinetic has been a key stakeholder also in this other consultation process for the entire district strategic development and climate neutrality for Bucharest. We transitioned then to data collection and energy requirements held by technical partners. Based on all of this information, we were able to co-create a vision and development scenarios for 2050 horizon in the case of Bucharest, which all of this information have been put in an energy transformation roadmap, which acts like a set of steps up until 2050, which it's very useful for the municipality to write projects, to establish partnerships, to continue different initiatives. So if you go to the next slide, how are we approaching the PED definition? So I think a key aspect is we approach PED as innovation hubs, as a place, as a sandbox, actually. If you make another click, Jonas, please. So for Bucharest, Sector 6 is very valuable because we already started a new initiative that has been born from the assessment of Kinetic, and Kinetic was phase zero. We had no data, we had no idea about energy transition for Bucharest, and we created a database, we created some pathways valuable for different projects that have been written and approved. The definition, I will try to stress on the second one, put into life by set plan, is defined by active involvement of citizens and stakeholders in the energy transition. Our key aspect in Kinetic is that we don't see PED as valuable without the involvement or inclusion of energy communities. We think that those two concepts have to go together. Okay, as a category, there are three categories put here: autonomous, dynamic, and virtual. In the case of Bucharest, I will say that autonomous PED within the geographical limits that we defined for Drumutabere, it's very difficult to obtain, which is why we want to see PED as an ambition for triggering a process that will unlock creative ideas than just energy balance in the end. Dynamic PED for us within the current geographical limit is very difficult. Virtual PED could be, but again, it's a matter of the limit and how you make it inclusive. Jonas, if you transition to the next slide. I will skip this. It's just about how we perceive energy communities included in the concept of PED. But I think I showed this in previous conferences. Next slide, please, Jonas. Okay, so this is the area that I was talking about. It's a neighborhood within the District 6, which has a population around 100,000 inhabitants, just a neighborhood. So it's a very dense area. These buildings are 4-story, 8-story, 11-story high, very compact development from the communist era in Romania, but very high quality of life, of green spaces and also the orientation of the building. So despite the density, the quality of living is very high. If you go to the next slide, Jonas. So we had to collect information manually, building by building, from energy audits to see the materials, to see the surfaces, to see the energy performance and everything. And having this huge amount of data that we have created, we were able to play with it by working with archetypes. So we have line, we have towers, we have schools, which are distributed homogeneous in the urban tissue. And if you go to the next slide, this information was useful to characterize the PED potential as from building to building on archetypes and within the geographical areas. We can say that it's the PED ambition for Drumutabere is almost impossible because of the district heating. The heating demand is the biggest concern for us, and the district heating supplies heating for entire Bucharest, not just Drumutabere, not just Sector 6, and currently is using fossil fuel and gas, and not sustainable, but there will be a transition going on. But because governance is the issue, the municipality has no say in how the district heating operates. It's a different entity. If you go to the next slide. Okay, this is the different archetype, the tower, which doesn't have as many energy opportunities because the surface of the roof is smaller for PV. If you go to the next slide. Here we have an assessment on the entire district. So this is done by EURAG Research. The previous was done by University of Palermo. In the best scenario possible, in which all buildings in the city, in the districts are energy class A. All roofs are covered with PV, 100%. And the district heating also works very good, not sustainable, but it's performing in the sense that it doesn't have any imbalances like losses. The PED status, as you see, is very, very difficult to obtain in our current density. So this is why we have to take PED as an umbrella and as a goal for Bucharest. This made us think of creative ways of solutions. We decided that we have to focus on lowering emissions and empowering citizens and establishing energy communities, because it's a black box energy communities for Romania. We lack legislation, we lack procedures. So this has been our focus in our co-creation process. If you go to the next slide, Jonas. Yeah, I will just briefly describe the challenges from outdated buildings which have not been renovated since they have been built in 1960, 1970. So it's a huge demand of renovation, and the current standard is polystyrene, and we advocated to move away from polystyrene to more sustainable options like bio-based solutions. We also identified that a problem is with the ownership. All apartments are private, but the renovations are done with public money. And this is an issue because the EU funding for renovation wave will stop at some point in time. And we might have a stock of buildings that will not be renovated. So we need new models for that. And also because we saw we have low resources for PV, we looked at different type of options like public space, urban furniture, PV on the facade, on the blind facades based on a similar study that we did. If you go to the next slide, Jonas.
Yeah, and now you have
Yeah.
about 1 minute left.
I will close. There are 3 pillars for our strategy: empowering owner association for new governance model and collaboration. We need an infrastructure for real-time data, and we have to synergize all of the efforts from climate neutrality, sustainable development, and all of these plans that we have towards urban regeneration and achieving better levels of emission. If you go next, through this and also after this. So for us, PED is not the goal in energy balance, but it's an umbrella. I will stress this again. If we go to the next slide, I just want to show, and again, 2 projects that we have, which we created 2 projects out of, no, that slide was good.
Okay.
With the stakeholders that we engaged mainly in our consultation process in Kinetic. So first, it's just a small project, if you go, called PED, in which we involved energy initiative. Yeah, we involved the energy initiative in the municipality. The consortium is international. We have here Ching Ching from PED, also, which focuses on urban furniture as energy nodes, so very dedicated to community, and also how to simulate the circular economy renovation practices, the thing that we have discussed. And the second project that we have written is now under revision, go again, please. Under evaluation is Favorite Plus, in which we created an innovation project for experiments to see how we can use bio-based materials for the renovation of the building block. How can this be based on a local level value chain? So using biomass available in metropolitan area, not importing bio-based or hemp panels from Germany, let's say. And also activate community within energy community hub to empower owners or owners association to establish their own energy communities and uncover all of these procedural black boxes that we face now in Romania. So I will stop here.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation, Kodre. And now we have a few minutes of time. I'm taking the time here again for a joint round of any questions, reflections, or discussion that has come to your mind during Kodre's presentation. Do we have some hands in the air? Any questions to what you just heard? Did it spark any? Paula? You are still muted, I'm afraid.
Okay, sorry. Hello, thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. My question to you is, which kind of output will be available at the end of this project? I have seen that you have included already an aspect which refers to mainstreaming and replication in your presentation. So I'm very interested in understanding your perspective, if there is a time to speak about.
Yeah.
And which type of results and which type of output you really have at the end. Thank you.
Yeah. So we already have important outputs to disseminate. We'll be starting next year. We'll be slowly putting them together for putting on the website. So there are three main important ones. From University of Palermo is the methodology and the results of working with the three case studies, working with archetypes, modeling the energy balances on an archetype level and characterizing the neighborhood for PED transformation. They have simulated what happens if we renovate entire buildings, what happens if you renovate and we put PV, this much PV, if you put also PV on the facades, if you put also PV in public spaces. And they also done an emission assessment to see how we can contribute to climate neutrality. So this is a very relevant output of the project. The second one is done by Eurag Research with the PED mapping that you saw, the map. They will make it also available as a web GIS platform. It will be interactive. And that methodology and way of calculating is also relevant, we think, for cities in order to make an assessment of what is the potential of PED in their area and where they should direct funds in what way. And the key finding for that is that apparently the structured urban tissue and not so dense urban areas, maybe also sprawl urban areas, have the highest likelihood of becoming PED if we talk about numbers. So it's a bit something that we did not expect. And the third one is the energy transformation roadmaps, which is the strategic narrative, let's say, for cities for 2040 to 2050. In order to just to display our story and the results of co-creation and how we plan for the future.
Perfect. Thank you for the question and for the elaborate answer as well. We have time for a quick one. One last question from Emil.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. Wanted to ask quickly, probably I skipped or missed, what is the entire input data used in order to do all this analysis and results?
Well, I'm not the best person to answer this question, but we had information on building level concerning the energy used per square meter per year. We also had information about building materials. We had information about surface area, windows, type of windows, the window area, orientations, this sort of information. So at the beginning, not very segregated day-by-day information for Bucharest at least. Maybe for Copenhagen and Parma, it's a bit more detailed.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation and for the questions as well. And following that, Svetlana Aloykina and Simon Schneider will now present different perspectives, highlighting some of the key challenges and solutions and insights from the Simply Positive project. So I give the word over to you now. Simon, you're starting, right?
Yes. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, my name is Simon Schneider. I'm a senior scientist at the University of Applied Sciences. Want to share our results on positive energy district definition from the project you see here. We've done a lot of projects in the last couple of years, and honestly, I'm a little tired of this whole debate because it feels like we're, I don't know, not getting anywhere. I guess that's also, why we see the decline in interest. But I can only contribute my 2 cents. So we've looked into a lot of different districts, as you can see here, and I guess the thing is, what Anelo said is, if you think about a positive energy district, I think it's like, I was thinking about, it's like looking at poverty in a sense. You have a concept that you don't want to have, like you want to have climate neutral districts and you don't want to have districts that are bad for the environment. Like you don't want to have poverty in your society. And that's has all kinds of aspects, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, you need to have some form of quantification where you can say, okay, if you're below this poverty line, then you live in poverty, you're poor, or if you're above, then that's fine, right? And whether it's complicated and you have different subsidies, etc., still there must be some form of calculating this, because otherwise you will never be able to say, okay, do we have a poor people in our society or not? And I think this translates a lot into how we should maybe think about positive energy districts, because there's the goal for going into climate neutrality and having districts that are positive energy and climate neutral. But ultimately, we can only answer if this is sufficient if we're talking about the whole system. And what this means for the goals of each district in the whole of Europe, it depends totally on your context. Yeah, it can be totally different, just like defining whether someone should get a subsidy for not being poor is totally different in different countries, different strata, etc. Okay, so this is just as a quick introduction. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is just reiterating the point that when we're talking about positive energy districts, we have a concept on the EU level, what Annelos showed, but then still we need some form of national quantification system where we can say, okay, this is a definition. It's a clear boundary. What district is inside this definition? What district is outside of this definition? Otherwise, I think we can put this to the books at some point. So what I want to show you is on the next slide, how we approach this now for Austria. We have a label, which is called Klimaaktiv, a sustainability label. And we have 3 different kinds of labels for positive energy districts now, going from the left, just including building, operation, and use, to the middle, including also mobility. And then finally, only the rightmost thing is actually a climate neutral positive energy district, where we also include embodied emissions of constructions, etc. And this should work for all districts in Austria. Every district in Austria needs to be able to achieve this. And the only way that is possible is by including these context factors at the bottom there, which is basically some form of subsidies, like some effort sharing subsidies between the different districts in Austria. And that all depend on national stock taking and national allocation models, which we've been developing for the last couple of years. I don't have time to go into the details, but I think this is one of the keys if we want to have a consistent quantitative definition of what a positive energy district is in the scope of your climate neutrality pursuits in your country. So yeah, so these context factors are virtual balance components. If you go to the next slides, you can see how we do this here. Just real quick, we have just the primary energy balance, the total primary energy for these different functional system boundaries. But the target of these primary energy balances changes depending on the context. I think that's the important thing. And this context quantification, that is the key, where you can put all your national specialities and all your district contexts and etc., all your different primary energy conversion factors, all your different energy carrier situations, etc. You put all of this into these virtual balance components. But the clue is that you don't do this on a district by district level, but you do it nationally. So you know that if you sum up all your potential positive energy districts, you end up with a climate neutral building sector, which is the goal. If you go to the next slide, I guess I have this. Yeah, can you just give me this? Yeah. So on a national level, quantitative definition, I think is the goal. And the question really is, what is sufficiently decarbonized for each of the districts in your city, in your country? And here we want to have these targets. So the positive energy district balance targets depend on the local potential. We do this by quantifying the district density, the built environment density. And we want to have the primary energy balance score improve if you have more energy flexibility in the district. We did this with different hourly dynamic conversion factors. Flexible, if you flexibly take up more energy than you need. Yeah, and ultimately this positive energy district balance score should be connected to the national, and with that, and also to the European climate and energy goals for the building sector as a whole. So these balance targets and these balance components in form of virtual context factors, they have to be derived top down from, in our case, a national climate neutrality scenario, basically. So that's that. And yeah, we did a lot of work to see that our quantification is achievable for different kinds of densities, as you can see here in Austria, high density, low density, different usage mixes. And you have to be really careful here, because if you don't do this effort sharing, then if you have a low density greenfield development, will be almost always easier to achieve a positive energy balance than in heritage urban contexts. Is that what you need for climate neutrality? Most likely not, right? So that's that. And yeah, so the first declarations, if you go to the next slide, we have like 3 different declarations now on the way. So one is just operation, which strictly speaking is not sufficient for climate neutral building sector in Austria. But it's a first step, right? We still want to be able to certify and decorate highly innovative greenfield developments, even though they're not strictly speaking climate neutral. And then also we want to include mobility for obvious reasons, also for more energy flexibility. And then finally, yeah, the final thing is then also including not only the primary energy balance, but also the greenhouse gas emission balance for the embodied energy and emissions. And then here, interestingly enough, of course, the brownfield developments, the renovation projects are much more easy to become, to achieve these balances, because you don't have to invest as much emissions into the building materials, etc. So yeah, we're currently wrapping up this declaration. It's going to be available 2025 in Austria for all districts. And now let me just wrap up with 2 important things. Next slide. Back to the poverty analogy. I hope I didn't overstress it, but we're talking a lot about what about green spaces, quality of life, etc., etc., etc. And I call this the KPI zoo, because it seems like we have so many KPIs to worry about in the positive energy district that yeah, it's all are important, but they don't really help us determining whether the positive energy district is really sufficiently decarbonized. So of course you can have a different goal, but our goal was to have a statement for, is this district sufficiently decarbonized? Similar to saying, is this a family living in poverty? Yes or no? So for this, we need only one balance. And I think that is too important to keep in mind, because if we all these other KPIs are of course important, sometimes even more important than the primary energy balance, but I don't think it's the right place to worry about them as in part of the positive energy district concept. Similarly to green space availability is not part of a poverty line definition, if you want to frame it like this. It's important, but nobody would say include green space KPIs in the poverty index. So in the same sense, in our opinion, worry about the primary energy and climate neutrality balance as part of the PED concept, and worry about all these other very important indicators in other certifications, in other labels, in other quality insurance programs. But this is, of course, something that we can only do in Austria because we already have certain labels that ensure the quality of the planning process, the participation, etc., etc. So yeah, but that's just the approach here. Because if you go to the next slide, it's really not. We don't have to say, do we need to this or that? We need both, right? And we do ourselves a disservice if we constantly mixing these 2 aspects and say, what about this? Yeah, well, what about this? I don't think that leads anywhere. At least that was my observation in the last couple of years, where this has been going back and forth from a very technocratic concept, then being hijacked by more social sciences and other aspects. So maybe we can just make peace here and say then we need both, and what is the appropriate place for each of these KPIs and quality assurances. Yeah, that's my input, or our input, I should say. So thank you.
Yeah, perfect, because time is actually running out. But were you supposed to add something here, Svetlana, or are you done with the project presentation as a whole now?
Yes, because I think Simon just described our general approach. In our Simply
Okay.
Positive project, we just trying to apply and test this described methodology. So I think it's more interesting for this conference exactly to discuss the general.
Then I'm sure we'll get to know the project approaches another time, and we'll stay here for today, I think. Perfect. Okay, then we have a few minutes for some direct questions or reflections in relation to Simon's presentation. And I have lost the Zoom window a bit. There. Do we have any direct questions? Anything you want to ask Simon about, or reflect upon the ideas and the approach on a national level in relation to your own country or your own context? Lian, please go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm from the DT for PED project. I'm curious about you have the three different definitions in the beginning, the simple PED, and then adding mobility, and then adding the climate perspective. Is there any order on it? For example, that's been a very big discussion in our PED with the climate impact, also the embodied emissions and so on, or embodied energy and related emissions, but we're excluding mobility. Is there any hierarchy on this from your perspective? Do you see what I mean?
Hierarchy, what you should include
I mean,
first?
you start with the PED, first PED division was just the density and retrofitting, etc. And then you added the mobility, the next step. And the third one was also adding the climate, the embodied energy and emissions to it, to the definition. And
well, you could argue either way. I mean, we of course always want to include the mobility as well, so that urban districts actually have it easier as compared to very remote places. But of course, the mobility you can only include it if there is some framework behind it, calculating the mileages, depending on location, etc. So it's more complicated. So I guess if you want to omit it, if you can of course also look into the climate neutral positive energy district without mobility. That's also possible. It only depends on the national stock taking and the national balancing approach. If the mobility is taken care of somewhere else, or if you know why you don't include the mobility in the balance, then that can also work, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, I am unsure who was next. Or it's only one hand. It's Paula. That's the last question I think we will have time with.
Yes, thank you. I have a question on Klima Active. Is it a strategy? Is it a national strategy? Is it a dual? It is at the city level, regional level?
It's a national declaration system funded by the Austrian Ministry of Climate, and it provides a whole family of different sustainability labels. Sustainability labels for buildings, sustainability labels for municipalities, sustainability labels for the planning process of neighborhoods and districts. There's all of these different declarations with a systematic approach and a handbook and a tool kit and everything. So it's like a knowledge hub for sustainability in the built environment in Austria.
Is there any added value to join this strategy? I mean, city have some benefits in terms of taxation, or also the real estate investors, or nothing like this?
Sometimes in Austria, the funding for subsidies for residential buildings is tied to achieving a certain climate active building declaration status. So you have to how do you say, you have to certify the project's quality if you apply for certain subsidies in parts of Austria, and you do that by achieving this climate active declaration. And also, of course, there's a marketing value similar to BREEAM, LEED, all of these different declarations. In Austria, it's a well-established label, and it has a market value for developers to put it on their buildings and projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may,
Is that a question, Christoph, or?
Quick comment. I think this is exactly what can lead to interesting kind of further developments. Because this example from Simon shows kind of a quantification or a concretization of the PED definition on the national level. In other contexts, it might be on a city level, because there was also the discussion in the chat. And we do see that be it national, be it local, that the contexts are super different, or the framework conditions. And in Austria, it fit quite well in an existing structure like Klimaaktiv, but it might not be the case for other countries. But I think the goal here is, and also for future deep dives, to collect these different examples, learn from it what is possible, and translate it to other contexts as well. So I think this is a very exciting example in Austria to do that on the national level.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and with that said, let me find. It is time for a short break. Yeah, we are heavily behind schedule, but very interesting presentations and discussions, of course. So well worth the time, I would say. I would like us to have a 4-minute technical break, starting again in 14:55, where we will either have a plenary discussion or a group discussion, and that is up to Anna-Lars, Christoph, and me to decide now during the technical break. So see you 14:56 now. My clock just turned 52 here. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Don't leave. Just turn your cameras off, please.
Will you stop the recording now? Yeah, perfect. Okay. You had your actually 5 minutes now. We were very kind, or we were confused in planning in live. And you probably heard us planning, but that's not in the recordings. Welcome back, everyone, to join us for a plenary discussion. We, after hearing you talk and reading and listening to your questions in the group chat, we decided to reshuffle this part of the workshop so that we have a joint discussion, everyone. We'll see how it works. We are 35 persons in the room, but we hope it will be beneficial for everyone. And I will moderate the session, and but everyone will activate through a Miro board, which Caro will be sharing now in the chat. And Christoph has sent out some instructions that these days you have to register. It's a free account on Miro, so you can already do that now. Start clicking on the link. And the idea, like planning this workshop and session, we thought we would focus on 3 key questions and letting you in 3 breakout rooms discuss 2 of these questions in 2 sections. But now, after the reshuffle, we will discuss the questions all together. So roughly...
sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't join to the Miro link right now. It says
if you have problems joining the Miro, please put your input in the chat and I will put it in the Miro.
Yeah, so
you would have to quickly register if you, I mean, it's not a big deal. You have?
I have registration already from Miro board.
But you can't enter it?
I will ask to the access. Oh, okay, it's coming.
Do the others have access?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know.
Should work, actually. Maybe...
I had to ask access.
Yes, I did too, either.
Okay.
It says you need to ask for access.
Mm-hmm. Same, okay, now.
Okay.
Check. Okay. Yeah.
In my case too. I mean, I was accepted to the Miro, but then I need to have a special permission to.
Yeah.
It seems that you have to give access to those who request access, or the other way would be that you simply open the Miro board to everyone.
Yes, there is an settings in the board that you can set up that then it will be open to everyone. Yes,
exactly here, and then anyone with the link.
Anyone in the link, yes.
And then you tick not
anyone in the link.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Board is now public.
Copy board link again and.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Let me try again. Yes. It is. I'm in my right now.
It works.
Perfect.
It works now. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And we even changed from mural to Miro to avoid this, and still we get some technical issues. But very good that we have experienced online workshoppers here in the room. Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the discussions and brainstorming, I think. So we've had the introduction. The idea here is to have a joint discussion on the PED framework. We started the discussion in the chat earlier. We continued it on the project presentations, but the idea here is to get even more deeper into the aspects of the updated PED framework definition. So we want everyone to reflect individually as a start. So we take 3 minutes of time, something like that, to brainstorm with these teal notes. And you can copy paste them or just move them to the canvas or surface for the key question in focus. And that is, does the updated framework definition help? And in what ways? And of course, you can reflect on other things as well. But that was the idea, to focus the discussions on this very open central question. So I will start the timer now, and everyone, I guess including us as well, or at least Annelos and Christoph, feel free to add reflections and comments here. In the leftmost part of our canvas, there were originally 3 spaces here. But I will stop talking and we do an individual brainstorming.
And should someone still have no access, please write your comments in the chat, or if you feel uncomfortable in writing in such a board.
You can write in the Zoom chat as
chat.
well, and we can transcribe it to the Miro board.
The basic question is, does this very qualitative framework as presented, or as you might have seen in the document, help in doing further definition work in your projects or in any PED-related context?
But also, how does it affect already ongoing projects, and how you have perceived PED? I think that's one of the follow-up questions. One more minute, then we can slowly start by sharing some of our reflections in the room.
I wrote down mine on the message box because I reached already the limit of Miro boards, so I cannot exceed to yours.
A master workshopper in the room. Christoph, would you be able to copy Paulo's comment? Thanks. Okay, roughly 3 minutes of time has passed. Let's try and dig into this. I have this shared screen. It's small. I don't know what the easiest way is now, but I pan through here a bit. You can also continue to put up new notes as we move on. I just saw a big yes, firstly, but then it was a note that was ongoing, of course. Could be helpful, but need to consider community. At least in the pictographic version, it is not linked to a positive energy balance anymore. Having a district with energy efficiency flexibility in PV is rather easy. Blink smiley. It is good. It reflects how we already are trying to work in the PEP process, positive energy planning process. Maybe at some point during assessment to make the distinction PED capable and PED aspiring, because long-term PED planning should take into consideration technological advancements. Yes, the social part helps getting a broader view from Flexpost. It is good to see that the social aspects get increasing importance. yes, as a general aspect to have in consideration. And not just a technical concept, it is more about people, more integration of spatial planning and spatial energy planning. Good base, still very generic and very specific.
I would like to hear more about this still very generic and very specific.
Yeah, sure. Let's dive into the notes. I had an idea to go through them all, but maybe that's just confusing. Let's start with that one. Good idea. Who wrote this one? Would you like to elaborate a bit?
Well, that from some part is nice because it focuses on the energy districts, but if you start to think about different urban scales, the complexity, virtual PEDs, all the different things is very specific sometimes. And if you think about defining KPIs that could apply to all the different PEDs, is very generic. So that's what I mean. So in both sides. But at the same time, it should be a name because in the practice, you have local regulations, you have problems with energy sharing, you have grid congestion. So I feel that in some way you need to aim to achieve the best, but it's always different in different contexts. So it depends on the city, it depends how you apply it. So that's why I said it's a good base to aim to, but yeah, it's generic and specific. Makes sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The how-to part can reinforce our approach as we see that we seem to be on the right track. Who wrote this note? Would you care to elaborate a bit? I think I know what you're getting at, but if not so, then perhaps we could take another note. I think that I think I would like to hear from this person as well. Some elaboration here on the PED as a process, or the PED process.
Okay, thanks. Liselott here from White Architecture in Sweden, Stockholm. Yeah, we have a process that we work with that we call positive energy planning process. And we are applying this in several of the projects. I think there are 3 of them here today. It's just PEP, DT for PEDs, and the PED stepwise. And it works quite well. And in the Just PEP project, we're adding social sustainability to the PEP process. So we're working a lot with the stakeholders and actively start with the vision and goal for the actor group. And then look at what stakeholders we have to contact, and then we contact them in an organized way. I don't know if you want me to elaborate more on this.
No, but I mean, so you think that the updated framework definition will actually help both the project work and the process itself then?
I haven't looked at it. I don't know more about it than what I've seen today.
Okay, yeah.
First time I saw it, but it looked good. I think it's really important to get the social sustainability part, the transformation, equality and everything, and that we have to work with the local stakeholders. But we focus very much on having the actor group together to understand how they or we should communicate to the rest of the stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There seems to be some different opinions here on the energy balance aspect of PEDs. At least it's not black and white here, but it seems to the writer of this note that it's not linked to an energy balance anymore. And having a district working a bit with this and that, it's rather easy. Is there some something? Do you want to elaborate more, whoever wrote this note, or is it rather self-explanatory?
I think it's just the pictures or the summarized graphical version. Because the definition itself, there is of course still the link to the
okay, you mean like that,
greenhouse
yeah.
gas. But in summarization of the pictures, it is not linked anymore.
Okay.
But do you see it as a problem, Helmut? I think it was to not have to also in a European context or in this framework not to clearly link the PED concept with an actual positive energy balance calculation.
I think you should link it to the goal of having the zero carbon emissions at least.
Yeah.
But because in case this is now a district which has energy efficiency, which has energy flexibility, and which has renewable energy source, is not enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Of course, at the one side, we're making it easier because, well, we're not saying you need a positive energy balance within your district, but at the other side, we're making it more difficult because you need to connect more with your hinterland, with the region as such, and indeed striving toward carbon neutrality. So it is making it easier at one side, but making it more complex because you need to take into account more aspects than only the energy aspect.
I think I agree. Is there anyone else who wants to reflect upon Christoph's question and Annelo's statement here? Want to add something?
I can. I can. I also agree that there is a missing definition between climate neutrality and carbon neutrality either. What should we define, since the climate is more complex than the carbon calculations either. And when we are talking about PEDs, we are mostly focused on the energy parts and renewable energy generation and the flexibility sharing of it. Of course, the efficiency is inside. But when we are talking about the climate part, we should also include more interconnecting issues with the climate, which also covers the resiliency issues and the other climate connections with the greenhouse gas emissions either. So we should also include this in the definition, I think. So the framework should include the climate aspects of the cities broader than the carbon, I think. We think.
Yeah, thanks for
input.
Yeah, I think that's very valid point. We do have that included in the current draft of the framework. But to be a bit more clear on the difference between carbon neutrality and climate neutrality is actually something that because also when I remember Simon's presentation, they have as a third step this really like more comprehensive this, I don't know what we call clean climate positive energy district. Svetlana, help me. Just
there are many definitions, but I mean PEDs is the most solid one that we can define right now as like the 3 steps we are always discussing with the flexibility, efficiency, but when we are talking about the there are always different definitions, and of course progress is going around this area with the Green Deal, etc. So we should consider broader than the energy aspect. I think more focusing on the environmental, also social part there, and social and environmental is also integrating with each other so much in some way. When you are creating a social good impact, then it means then you are more available to create positive environmental impact. Because environmental impacts occurs because of the human behavior. When you can touch to the human behavior, then which is the social part, then we can improve the or mitigate the environmental impacts either.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have a question or reflection from Liselott again.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I think this the top of the image is very good, but we have to be careful, I think, when we talk about positive energy districts, and what we include and what we don't include, because if we're just talking about positive energy districts, we don't have to include all the rest. So I don't know if we promise too much when we say that we do all this, because that's not, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't, but we have to be clear on what we are including in our work. So, and I like the standards from Austria. I thought it was very clear with these 3 different approaches. So maybe we could like make some kind of blocks that you have started to do here, I think, with these blue and green squares. I think we could add some squares, and in some areas we could take away some squares, but it could help us to understand how we're working with PEDs and climate neutral areas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I want to say. And then I also yesterday heard someone say energy neutrality, and I never heard that term before. So I've heard energy positive and climate neutral, but energy neutral. This was something new for me yesterday.
Yes, that's the biggest problem, I think. The literatures and the definitions are so broad, and there are like more than 100 lists that defines to realize the aim, become a PEDs. But there is also another approach right now, which is the PCEDs, positive clean energy district. So what could be differentiate between the positive energy districts through the clean concept? So the clean concept can include the climate parts and more focus on the environmental impact parts with the life cycle approach thinking could be. There is already a definition, and we are working on the Horizon Europe project, which is the base idea is to build the positive clean energy district, not the PED. So this is the main discussion right now in our project on how we should differentiate the PEDs through the PCEDs. So, but I agree with you, Liz, that when we are talking about PEDs right now, we can make some borders that mostly maybe focus on the energy part. But when we are talking about the PCEDs, we can include the climate neutrality parts.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to quickly reply or reflect to either Liselott's comment or is it Merve? Yeah, your
yes,
Marv. Thank you. Or your reflections here on the PCED before giving the floor to you, Lydia, who has been raising your hand for quite a while.
Sorry.
I think I made my comment. Let's give the floor then to you, Lydia.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like just to share my input for does the update framework definition help? Actually, I was point out that could be helpful, but need to consider community and climate. Actually, as I'm climate expert, and usually when we talk about climate, of course, we always consider that actually climate, energy, community, human activity, they are big puzzle, such a big picture. And when we have to consider about the energy, we always have to think about the lifestyle, urban lifestyle, community, and also how the energy will influence and impact on the climate, and reverse, how the increase of the climate will influence of the energy. And when we talk about buildings, actually buildings is some part of the some local community or some local scale or some city scale, and we always have to consider that they're interactive. So here I agree that energy is very important, but sometimes if we add some keywords in this maybe if you go to the a little bit top part with the blue top part of the mirror board, regarding to the just a second, I will go to the why do we need positive energy district, and how do we realize positive energy district? I think here when somebody just not familiar to the project, not familiar, maybe keyword is very important here. When we need to speak about people is very important. They're connected to the energy. Climate also is very important. They are in connection. This is, I think, should be pointed out in some way, should be connected. This is just my short comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment as well. And it somewhat relates to Liselotte's comment on the usefulness of the updated framework definition. And just to add on to this, these remarks and feedback, there has been like a great co-creation round of this updated framework definition. So there is all, and I think that you can actually get the story behind the like the infographics here in the updated framework definition. But then again, it's not set in stone. It's a final draft version, so it's very valuable for us also with this round of feedback. Christoph, you have a question or any reflections to past speakers?
Just to clarify maybe, and it's very interesting, and what the last comments that have been made or the discussion reflects very much also what we have been discussing. So what is actually at the core of a positive energy district? To do all social aspects and all economic aspects are needed for a positive energy district. And also what Simon said, PEDs are the energy part. There are other certifications and other labels for other parts in the urban in the building context. What we actually try to do, and what is a bit maybe also a problem with the graphic depiction, is that we actually the original illustration was that the kind of like shelves. There is a core. What is a positive energy districts, which is very much focusing on the energy functions, and around that there are these other aspects like energy justice, like communities, like climate, and then the how as a third circle. So just in terms of communication, I think we need to reconsider this graphic. This is not the best way to go, and to make clear that there are layers to it. So there is, of course, energy. The energy is very much in the focus in the urban context, but there are layers to be considered around that, and what then in the end shapes a positive energy district. So I take that very much as a feedback to be more clear also in kind of how we present this approach, because it clearly reflects also what you've been saying now. We try to respond to these reflections. Okay, what is actually at the core, and what are other layers to it? And I think we need to work on that.
Yeah. Thanks for the comment to the previous speakers, Christoph. All right. I see no immediate raised hands, but we have a lot of more notes. Liselott again.
Sorry, no. I think to react on what Christopher just said, I think there is a very important aspect of time also, because when you look at this very nice picture, this is like the vision of the future. But I feel, because I'm working in several PED projects, it takes very long time. So this is maybe in 5, 7, 10 years that we have obtained this stakeholder relationship that we can work with the PEDs. But there's so much work to do before we get there, I think. I don't know. Do you see what I mean? You have to do so much work with the actor group or the team core team before you can go out and speak to everyone. Otherwise, maybe it will land wrongly. That's what I'm afraid of.
That's why I personally think PEDs need to be part of wider strategies of a city, and so that kind of there needs to be a strategic approach towards it, and not just okay, this is an area where we can do it, and let's do it now. But a strategic approach also, kind of as the local solution element, the decentralization element in a wider energy transition strategy that includes district heating, all things that have been said already. There are kind of large-scale top-down solution approaches as well, and how to combine that needs to be put in a strategic context. And with that, it will still take time, but maybe things are a bit more clear and kind of can be done in a more strategic way.
And it happens also that it comes from the other way. For example, here in Hammarby Sjöstad, that came from a citizen perspective, and it's gone the other way around. So we have good examples of the other way around too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we have another raised hand here from Ensa.
Yes, thank you. I was just reflecting on what Christoph was saying, and also was Lise also saying. I think it's very important to align strategy and to strategize indeed positive energy districts in the urban strategies, because otherwise we don't go, I think, far. But there is also, and sometimes working with cities, there is the feeling that we need to move and to mobilize maybe beyond the possibilities that the current governance system and the governance legal framework allow to. In the sense that maybe we need to mobilize capacities that are more in the citizens, in the community environment, to really provoke the need for change. Because otherwise we stay just all the time in these existing frameworks that create a lot of inertia in initiatives that mobilize the transition. So we have to strategize, I think, at multiple levels, and it's important to do that, also having the community on side to see, I think Anne-Luz put there some kind of like a stakeholders' needs at different levels. I think it's very important, the mobilization capacities in this strategic thinking about PEDs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I think I agree, and I also think that it touches a bit upon what the role, or the third key question here, what the role of PEDs are in a climate neutral city, and how it relates to like other initiatives and which practices that must change in order for PED to be successful. And one thing there is, of course, the alignment with other urban strategies, as you put it. And Martin, has an example. Martin has an example in his chat here, in our chat, that in his city of Groningen, the local government intends to combine energy measures and climate resilience measures in a generic district-based approach. Martin, would you care to elaborate a bit about this example?
No, it was just recent news that, and we will in the next year learn more from that and analyze together with the municipality whether that would make sense. So I hope 2 or 3 years from now to tell a little bit more about that approach. It was triggering me because I think it is an extra ingredient in doing things locally.
Yeah.
To also take resilience into account, and if you do that together in the district, the people will like it, and it's yeah. If you build a kind of water basin together, and so a new ingredient in the mix.
Yeah. Looking forward to hear more from that as well. Okay, I see that the time is running out. We were confusing you a bit with mixed messages on whether we stop at 15:30 or 16.
Wait, Jonas, we have one more hand, and I think we have time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that we should aim to like start wrapping it up now before too many drops off. But I will give the floor to Juanita here once more to have a final reflection or statement to the group.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's reality or not reality, but I have been hearing for 1 week histories about the buildings in Palermo, how they decide to do works here in Amsterdam and in other places. And I think that we should think about, yeah, sure, support the community, but it should be an economical benefit for them. And this should be embedded in some way in the concept, because in some way I feel that if our goal is to increase adoption of the positive energy districts. And right now, if I think on the experience we had in Atelier, for instance, in the north of Amsterdam with new buildings, and I think about the building in Palermo or the building, I don't know, in Milan, or my building that is already built, I feel that is quite far away from having a value proposition that is not related to sustainability. So I feel that we should actually reflect on what are the motivations and how we can actually make it economically feasible or convenient for more communities to adopt this framework, because doing a local energy community for me is a nightmare right now, as it is in many of the countries. So why we don't think about how this framework can actually make this process more simple? So it's more a default option to adopt this rather than trying to convince people to become more sustainable and save the planet. So I think that now we need to think about how we scale in complex cases as buildings of 20 floors, 6 floors that have complex governance, how we embed the company. So my comment is like how this framework can become very practical in terms of make it more adoptable and giving very clear indications to people on how they should accelerate this and make it economically convenient. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an interesting final reflection here. I think there's great potential in what you suggest here, and that value creation model or something in that direction is one way to go ahead and to unlock the true potential of PEDs and to actually make the most out of the updated framework definition as well. Okay, I think we will not have time to focus on the sub-questions right now, but I see that you have noted down a lot of reflections as well. We will keep the Miro open for you to come back to and have a look at. But we will also, of course, use it to collect all the notes and to compile the data, of course. With that said, and I'm going to skip a few slides, I think, and just want to take the opportunity to talk a bit about the following workshop series here of the deep dives. I hope, or we hope, that you found today's session valuable and insightful. We would love for you to participate here in future sessions as well. So please take a moment and register in the upcoming sessions as well. And I can also quickly paste the link perhaps in the chat, or if anyone of Anna-Los and Christoph could do that, I would be very thankful. And lastly, before we end, we'd also like to hear your thoughts on the format and your feedback on the session itself. It's would be very valuable for us in improving and making future sessions even more impactful. So please take your time and use this follow-up Menti here for a quick interactive evaluation round. It's just a few questions, right, Christoph? So simply use the code here and we can paste it in the chat as well as we move on to the last slide. Martin, do you have a final question or remark there?
Yeah, I have a question. Yes, the next session on social aspects might be important for our national project, but if I forward that, that's quite a bunch of people. Is that destroying your process or is that allowed? Because I don't know who will show up.
What do you think, Christoph?
I have no quick. Let's take it up bilaterally. I don't, Martin.
Just forward to them, or
no? Let's talk about it still. Yeah.
Of course, we want the event to spread, but maybe we could select a few. I don't know what the way forward is, but please write to Christoph and me and Anna-Los, and we take it bilaterally. Yeah.
But I'm very happy that I'm actually positively surprised also considering the day and the time that so many of you participated, which shows really for us the interest in doing so. And please make these. It was a bit of a pilot of these kind of deep dives, and it's very hard to draw the line. Okay, now we stop the discussion, and it's that's not easy for us also. And I think it was very good inputs. And I think for the next, can only encourage you to be part of the next deep dives as well, where it's probably going to be a bit more specific in terms of the topics, to kind of shape together with us this format. Use it as an entry point to be in contact with other colleagues that you might not have known so far. To deepen or further develop the discussions. Just to have that said, I will communicate with open email addresses with you, unless you tell me I should not, to give you the opportunity to get in contact with each other. Please come back to me if you don't want your email to be visible in any communication. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Christoph.
And thanks a lot for these 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your participation and engagement here today. I hope you have at least a few new insights and connections and some inspiration here to apply to your own work. With that said, we would like to wish you a wonderful holiday season ahead. And hope you have the time to relax and recharge and enjoy some well-deserved time off here with loved ones. So that's it for today, folks. Thanks again for being part of this workshop, and we look forward to seeing you in future sessions as well. So take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Weekend.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.